Good afternoon, everyone. It's Leanne Antoine, gracing you right here on social media platforms. I hope that everyone is keeping well, feeling well, and in some ways looking forward to Christmas. I say that with slightly mixed views. Um, I thought today I would talk about, and you'll see in the title, I wanted to talk about who has made your physiotherapy career. Now, I'm not talking about those of us that have come to, potentially the end of our careers and we're moving on to something else. I'm talking about who has made your physio career up to this point. And I put physio and I put therapist in brackets as well, because I know we have people who listen who are not just physios. And there are lots of reasons why I've chosen to talk about this. And what's probably, well, it is my last episode before Christmas, but also the last episode for December 2021. And I do feel truly blessed to have been able to bring my Oprah Winfrey style conversations to this platform here with Chew It Over. So I'm very grateful for that. I also wanted to say I'm really grateful for the people that have reached out, send me messages, email me, uh, just their feedback, their thoughts. And I just want to say how grateful I have been over the last year for these contacts, these people reaching out. It's quite something when you can reach out to someone you don't really know, but you feel like you almost really know them. And I know that lots of relationships have been built in that way, particularly because of the pandemic. Anyway, I digress slightly. As I said, the topic is who has made your physio career? And I wanted to look at it because, and I said I was going to come to this, I lost somebody that was really quite close to me in October. And I've known that person for about 20 years. Now, most of you will know I've been in this physio profession for nearly 20 years, so 15 qualified, and I did some time as a physiotherapy assistant, as a support worker. Salute up to the support workers in the industry, like big time, especially at the moment. I know you guys are out there doing your best. And this particular person knew me before I'd even qualified as a physiotherapist. And over that time has watched me grow considerably. She'd watched me grow considerably. And I think that at a time when I was, that much younger, bright, bubbly, full of energy, probably as I am now, but maybe slightly more analytical about that. And I definitely have my down days. I started to think about the evolution of that relationship and what that relationship has meant to my physiotherapy career, my physiotherapy journey. For some people, the loss of Paula Clayton was really devastating. And even if it wasn't devastating to you personally, it was sad. You were able to acknowledge it. Paula shared her journey very openly on Facebook. So I don't think that there'll be any problem with me mentioning her name in my podcast today. But one of the reasons why I am talking about this is because it's heartbreaking when you lose someone who has backed your career, probably before you knew where it was going to go, the potential it had, the legs it had. And some of the difficulties that I think I've faced in some of my own friends and family not knowing that person. And maybe that sounds odd, I'm not sure. But when we go to work, whether you work in the NHS, whether you work privately, doesn't matter, where you're at. And maybe it doesn't even m- matter particularly that I've made this a focus on your physiotherapy career or your career in general. This might just be absolutely relative to life in itself. But what I was thinking about was when you lose that person and your friends and family don't know that person, the impact of that. So you've got the loss of the person in itself, which is sad, heartbreaking, all the components of grief that you can think of. And then you've got the fact that who do you talk to about the loss of that person? Family is usually the very reasonable people to reach out to, your friends, equally so. But then getting people to understand or trying to express the importance of that person or people in your life, especially because our careers become so embedded in us, is actually quite difficult. I have found that quite difficult. Now, in addition to this, I didn't just lose a really good friend in October, but I lost a friend maybe 15 years ago, just as I had qualified. And I think that the loss of this person in October really flooded home the feelings about that person who I lost when I was in my early 20s. And then I lost another friend. It's not sounding good, is it? About 3 years ago. They were all people that I worked with. Now we know that the relationships that ultimately we build and make at work can be very, very separate to our personal lives, can be very, very separate to our home lives. But undoubtedly, we spend a lot of time with those people at work. So they're bound to have, it's their loss is bound to have some kind of impact on you in some way. I was going to say I don't care, even if you're someone who feels like you've got a heart of stone. You're still going to be impacted in some way. But what I wanted to do in this episode was really try to explore some of these emotions in terms of the relationships that we build with people in our careers, and then looking and evaluating how we can be making an impact, even when we don't realize, on the people that are pursuing their careers in our fields. Does this make sense? I'm hoping that it makes sense. One of the things I found really, really interesting, or I find really interesting about the way I build my client base, my physiotherapy patient base in private clinic, is that I get lots of word of mouth referrals, as well as consultant referrals, GP referrals, people coming through the door because they've seen they've read a review, someone's told them about me. And I'm always very conscious that if somebody is very new on my book or their name is very new and unfamiliar, I'm thinking, oh, I wonder who's told them about me, or where did they find me? Is it my advertising, my marketing? And brilliant. It's always brilliant when they say, such and such told me about you. They've had a really good experience. They've done really well. Or I've seen someone down at my tennis club. I'm always really empowered by the people that I know I don't know and they've managed to find me, or the people who are trusting of somebody else's word about my skill level. I'm always really flattered about those patients who come in the same way that I'm equally as flattered when I am referred across families for physiotherapy treatment. Because I think there's something so intimate about one family member recommending their daughter, their son, their husband, their wife, their aunt, their uncle, their grandparent to me to take care of them for their physiotherapy need, whatever that might be. And as I've grown with, my clinical experience, my personal development, people that I would class as friends or people that I've worked with have sought my attention for their physiotherapy, and they've also then referred friends and family. Now, the lady I lost in October is somebody who did exactly that. She knew me as a physio assistant. Over time, she's needed physio herself. Friends and family that she's known have needed physiotherapy, and she was very, very keen to recommend me. And you can probably see where I'm going with this. There's a real growth, and it's really organic how this grows. It's got layers. This person that you have built a friendship with outside of the workplace, that starts to grow. And you know that person when you're in your early 20s and your life is a certain way. And then as you grow, and that person has helped me to grow too, but that friendship evolves in relation to who you are and who you are becoming. And I also think, as someone who stands on the outside, she wasn't a physio. It was also really inspiring to see how inspired she was about my efforts to develop within my career, within my passion. I found it really difficult when she died because I couldn't ring my mum and say, oh, such and such has died, and the emotion that I felt with it, although I could tell my mum, I did obviously tell my mum, it didn't feel like she could understand. 20 years, such a long time, isn't it? And as I said, so much of this made me reflect on certain relationships that I have built in that 20 years. My lecturers, my placement educators, my seniors, the bosses of my workplaces, my team members, the crucial person that is your line manager and might well be for a significant period of time. And then how those relationships for me as a business owner have really evolved when you then come into private practice. One of the things in private practice is networking. I recall going to a networking event and the chap said it didn't matter what you did in the room, everybody wanted more patients, clients, customers. So you start to build different relationships at different stages of your career. Some of those relationships are really short-lived. Some of those relationships last you a lifetime, not necessarily yours, but the other person's. And some of those relationships then have you really thinking about the trajectory of the rest of your career. And you're also having conversations with them that you wouldn't ordinarily have with anybody else. Who do you have those conversations with now? I think there are a lot of us that work privately who, because our network has grown so substantially, the community around us is not just based on physiotherapists. And I know there are people there who are now saying, well, I don't just know physios, Leanne. But if you work, for example, in a physio department, a lot of the people you spend your time with will probably be physios. Maybe there are other therapies that are interlinked into physiotherapy, OT, dietetics, etc. Privately, my world is surrounded quite differently because I'm networking with people in different fields, and it's not always health and wellness orientated just by nature, right? And I wanted to explore how some of that has made me feel. It's also made me question how some of that makes you guys feel, particularly those of you that are working privately. If you have had pivotal people help to drive you in your career and you've lost them, how have you felt? Have you changed the trajectory of your business as a result of it? Do you know what? That thing I was talking to that person about, that I said I was going to do, that I never did, I'm now going to do. Have you had to find another person to almost fill that person's gap in terms of what that person was giving to you from I'm going to say, business strategic point of view, in terms of business ideas and motivation? Because people hold different places in your life, and the value then that those people bring, even when they don't know, the value that those people bring is incredible. It's such a wonderful space on reflection. If I go back and just talk a little bit about, for example, Paula Clayton, I know that sparked up charity donations. I know that it kind of brought people together in our community that maybe you wouldn't even necessarily talk to, because that's what relationships, really powerful ones, do. It almost networks you with other people in your circle. And I think that there's just, and I don't know how conscious people are even about some of this stuff as I'm talking about it. Are you thinking, yeah, this is really interesting? Or actually, I've never really evaluated these relationships in that way. I think it's really powerful to know that you can take a relationship that almost started as nothing when it began, but to see and know how impactful that relationship is, has been, will be on the rest of your life several years down the line. And almost being reflective on the things that you have, I'm going to say, achieved, not because it's about success or failure, but because of the things that those relationships help you to do, help you to see, help you to think. When I was writing the bio for this episode, I was I scripted in there that I was passionate about human behaviours. And that is exactly what I am, passionate about human behaviours. Why do we do the things that we do? What makes us do those things when we do them? What drives us? What doesn't drive us? How do we evaluate it? And I think that the loss this time round, nearly 15 years on from the first lady that I lost from my workplace, it really started to make me see how much I had done in that time through some of those very elevated friendships, those very elevated journeys. My time, or the time that I've been spending doing this podcast, and even conversations that I have had with people since I became a little bit more visible in our field, some of those relationships for me are going to grow like tenfold. There are certain people that I have become very connected with, connected to, even though physically I've never met them in person. But there's a real sense of energy and empowerment about those relationships. And those people are physios. So again, I'm drawing on where I'm at in my physiotherapy career now and what those relationships will potentially afford me to in terms of conversation, personal growth and development, professional growth and development, but also then empowering me to empower the next line of physios and therapists coming up through the rank. Like, what do I then have to offer those people that are coming up and are potentially reaching out and looking for some kind of security, stability, the need for a seasonal relationship at a time where they are growing and developing in their own careers. So it's been quite an interesting time period. In the time that I've known my friend, I went from being a physiotherapy assistant all the way to becoming a business owner. What an incredible journey. I was able to get the message to her that I'd become a council member for the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. And I had also got to tell her that I had opened up my physiotherapy studio, local, actually, very, very locally. And I thought, isn't that incredible? Isn't that so beautiful to have been able to have shared such an amazing part of my career journey with that person, and to have a friendship with that person that's so all encompassing and is about you and them, and the things that are important to you and the things that are important to them. I'm wondering how that's making you think about the relationships that you've potentially developed over the last year or two throughout the pandemic, the impact that's had on your career and your career development, but also the impact on those people that you met at the very start of your career and the people that steered or have steered your career in the direction that it's taken. I'll never forget a chap that said to me, Leanne, if you do your master's, this is a means of fast tracking your career development. And at the time, I just remember thinking I had lots of questions. I had lots of whys about physiotherapy. Why do we do this? Why is it always the same? Why do we do joint mode pressures for this long, this number of repetitions? Why do we always give out three sets of 10 on an exercise, like on exercises? I always I always had so many whys. So that was why I felt like I was going to pursue my master's in terms of career development. It was never so much about the fast tracking, although in many ways he was probably right. I built a network of people when I was doing my master's. I'm going to say more so amongst the tutors than the students because the cohorts changed as per the modules. And there was something very powerful at the time in terms of that development because I was diagnosed as dyslexic and dyspraxic in that time. So at the time, people like Andrea Molson, and I'm sure people will know Andrea Molson at the University of Hertfordshire, she was quite pivotal in that journey. Dion Ryder was also really pivotal in that journey. And a lady called Helen Stamps, who wasn't a physio at all, she was from the English department, and was really powerful in supporting me through doing my master's program. And those people became visible for me at a time when I was like, oh, do you know what? Maybe this isn't worth it. Maybe this is the wrong route. Maybe I've chosen to go down a route and this is just not the right way. But again, the development of those relationships at that time enabled me to feel like I could do it. And we all need those people, lifetime, season, reason, to give us what we need at the time to move ourselves forward. Now, as I said, for some people, the conversation I'm having with you right now is not purely based on your physio career. It might just be based on life itself. But I would almost challenge you in that respect with those relationships. Because if somebody has impacted you personally, made you think about things overall, they probably had an impact on your career and the decisions and the journey that you've decided to take with that. It's almost impossible to, disentangle the two things, particularly if you have got a career and that is something you're trying to develop. That's not just a job. So, yeah, it just had me thinking over the last few months. I also think about the way that some of those relationships have given me exposure to certain things that maybe I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have been exposed to if that relationship purely came through family. Actually, the extension of this of network of these relationships opens doors. It's exposing you to different aspects of life that might impact your career. And it's introducing you to communities, people that maybe you didn't think you would ever have had the opportunity to meet at all. It's just been really interesting. I think the passing of my friends really made me think on different levels about my physiotherapy career. And in some ways, it's not just been me that's nurtured that up to this point, but it's also been those people who have been supporters, who have been fans, who have been allies, who have backed you. It's really made me think about those relationships, the importance of them, in the support that they might provide as you move through your career. And even though at the very beginning I said that it was interesting because I couldn't call my mum and know that she knew the person, there's almost something still quite beautiful and refreshing about the fact that she doesn't know them. It's separate. I owned that piece of that relationship with that person. I shared it with that person. I know I've got a lot of people who have supported me in my career and the development of my career who are not even on social media platforms. They're not visible. They don't go on social media. They're not interested in it. Maybe they only use it personally. And unless I share something like this with them, they wouldn't even know that I've mentioned their name. They, when we meet up, we will discuss my career, my family, their family. And on exploring some of that, or maybe they're connected to my newsletter, my Distinct Physiotherapy newsletter. So they're getting little clips of things that are happening. But there's almost something so beautiful about those relationships as well. People just seeing you as you are, knowing you as you are, faults included, faults, differences, I don't know, weaknesses, all of it included. And knowing that that friendship, that relationship continues to grow based on where you were at when you met them and how that whole relationship evolves. It's something that excites me. I'm going to pause just for a second because I'm hoping that there isn't anything technically wrong. So I'm getting a little message from Jack. Thank you, Jack. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like Leanne, we haven't been able to hear you for the whole 28 minutes. But yeah, as we are all moving through our careers and we're posting, we're all very, very visible. A lot of us are very, very visible. Even if you're a business owner and you're releasing stuff as per the business, I still think that that gives a lot of people a context about you. And that context about you may be something that empowers, inspires, encourages someone else. I'm not saying everything that you do or choose to do, you have to do thinking about whether it's going to impact whoever that might be, because that's probably not your portion to have to consider, like truly. Because at that time you're doing whatever it is for you. But maybe be mindful that somebody might reach out to you on the basis of some of the things that you're doing because it's made them really consider some career decisions for themselves. In the same breath, they might not consider you at all. They might not reach out to you at all, but still feel incredibly inspired by some of your journeys. Today's podcast is very, very much dedicated to my friend. A little bit of me wants her to know how thankful, how grateful I am for the support that she gave me. But I also want to thank the people that are here, alive and here and visible, to say thank you for your support throughout 2021. Thank you for voting for me onto Physio Council. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the tweets. Thank you for the reaching out. Thank you for the cards. Thank you for the gifts that I have received. I'm extremely grateful for those people who have helped to make my career into what it is today and will be there guiding and shining a light on what my career will look like in the future. Thanks to Jack and his team for this constant opportunity to be visible on this platform. And I'm looking forward to having some amazing guests on for next year. I will say, if you know anyone who is doing some amazing work in physiotherapy or therapy in general, and you think that they need a light shining on them, my show is every second Tuesday of the month. And I love exploring human behaviors. So, whoever it is, send them my way. Maybe we can have a conversation and I can get them on the show for 2022. I am here in my Christmas jumper, rocking the afro, sleigh bell sleigh. I thought I'd get my Christmas jumper on and show it off before the end of the show. Anyway, that's me. Merry Christmas. Have a fantastic start to 2022, and I will hopefully see you on the other side. It's been a pleasure.